Welcome to the Life Matters podcast with enlightening conversations on success and living well. My guests are all motivated by the desire to make a difference, and they share their wisdom, personal journeys, and a host of practical guidance that we can apply in our lives. Subscribe on your favourite platform and never miss an episode. I'm delighted to be talking to Tahira Herold today. Raised in Montreal, Canada, Tahira moved to the UK in 2000, and her career as a film makeup artist spanned more than 25 years. And over this time, she observed the ebb and flow of confidence in both herself and people close to her. She wanted to understand more about how this played into worthiness and stress. In her 40s, she trained as a yoga teacher and embarked on a coaching certification. She has in some ways come full circle from her academic background in psychology and now helps individuals, especially women, to overcome the barriers that are holding them back, specifically around confidence. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. What a lovely intro.
Well, you're a wonderful example of someone who has successfully pivoted their career in midlife. Can you tell me what was going on for you in the lead up to that?
Yeah, for sure. So look, I'm not going to lie. I loved my job. I loved my career. I loved working in film. I loved doing makeup. I loved doing red carpet, all until the day I didn't love it anymore. Now, there were some mitigating factors to this. So firstly, I started in my career very young. I was 19 really when I started. So by the time, sort of 2019 had rolled around, I had already been in it for over 25 years. Film is quite a challenging industry. It's wonderful, but it also has long hours, early mornings, so on and so forth. I have a son, and both of us, my husband and I, we're in the industry, and it was just a lot. It was a lot of juggle with a young child at the time. And so I had actually originally kind of left film, but stayed in makeup, stayed in beauty when he was first born. And after mat leave, had just done red carpet photo shoots. So still working as a makeup artist, but in much kind of more bite-sized days, much more manageable chunks. But as the siren call, as it always does of the film industry, pulled my boat and then drew me back in when he was about 4 or 5, which was wonderful. But in those years where I'd returned, again, the juggle reappeared. There was a lot going on. It was really difficult to kind of manage. Now he was a school run and so on, and childcare. Neither of us have family that live here. So there was that whole factor, just the logistics of life. Then there was the idea that I read the most incredible book that I recommend to everybody. And in fact, I've just done a whole mini program on it called The Big Leap. And this is a book by Gay Hendricks, which talks about how often through your late 30s, you will hear a whisper on your shoulder. And that is really your kind of higher purpose, your deeper calling, tapping you, knocking you on the shoulder. And the longer you ignore that call, the louder that call gets. And some people are lucky enough to live their calling, live their purpose from a young age. Some people get that calling later in life, but a lot of us get it in midlife. And I find for women as well, I think a lot changes sort of in those late 30s, early 40 years. Hormonally, obviously, we're changing. With the lowering of the estrogen, our care for other people focus diminishes, and we learn to come back and care for ourselves. A lot of us will have been in a career for a certain amount of time, and maybe we achieved the milestones that we wanted to. Maybe we felt complete or whatever. So there are some psychological as well as internal changes. And this book, The Big Leap, had always sat with me. I had actually read it in 2010. And this idea that there's a zone of genius, that there's something that is unique to you, a gift that is unique to each individual, had always whispered and sat at the back of my mind. And then the pandemic. So when the pandemic started, obviously everything changed for everybody. But working with faces, working very close, everything dried up overnight. And I had already started working as a content creator, sort of probably about 2017, 2020, had to pivot to that kind of full time. And I actually really enjoyed it. And I realized the flexibility that it gave me around my child. But there was a point at which, so through 2021, where we didn't know how much longer this was going to go on. And the truth is that life on set had become really difficult with the masks and the PPE and everything that had been fun about our job, everything that I had loved so much, the connection, the people, was filtered literally through these plastic sheets. And that love had dissipated very quickly, or I was kind of painfully reminded of all the stuff that wasn't so good. And so really there was this moment where I was standing on set behind a mask and I'm just done. For me, it really felt like I was complete. I was, of course, a little bit exasperated, and there were some other factors that were really irritating that really led to this actual moment. However, I mean, the truth is that I was just complete. I didn't announce it to people. I didn't say anything. I was just like suddenly kind of deeply unavailable.
And did you know what you were going to do at that point?
No idea. No clue. I mean, there's a whole other part of me like, what were you thinking? What am I going to do? But I decided that I was done, but I had no backup plan. So the only backup plan there was to do content, still do beauty content for over 40 women. So my background in beauty, so I've been a makeup artist since I was 19 years old, but from really early on in my career, I'd always been really into environmental, really conscious beauty. And so I would do lots of videos, tutorials. I'd work with brands, and I still do some of that work. So I had always wanted to do my teacher training. I've been doing yoga since I was like 18, on and off for years. Sometimes I'm really, really devoted and practicing a couple times a week, and sometimes I'm not. And so I was 45 going, time's ticking. I don't know how much longer you're going to wait for this time to do your teacher training. So I just kind of went for it. So winter 2022, that's when I had decided that had been my last project in film. I was just going to see if I could continue this process of making content for beauty brands and hoping that gave me some income. But I was just going to do my teacher training. My husband half gifted me as a Christmas present my training, and the gateway drug. It was just really this way. There was going to be a different way for me to hold space and have people in my world connect with people, talk to people, teach people. I used to teach makeup. I used to lead teams of up to 26 makeup artists. Like communicating, teaching, holding a room, it comes naturally. It's in my wheelhouse. Know how to do it. So that was something that was natural and kind of easy. That was an easy segue. And I really enjoyed the teacher training, and then just kept failing forward.
And what about confidence? I think this is a really interesting subject personally. When did you discover that confidence was so important? I know I introduced you by talking about you started observing the ebb and flow of confidence in yourself and others. But when did you have that realization that it was so important for us to develop?
So it was actually about a year into my career coaching, because I was at an event. There was a Soho House here, and did this amazing series of talks. There was two types of talks. One of them was called Midday Motivations, and another one was Conscious Conversations or something like that. Now, I have been a personal development junkie since I was 18. If you're old enough, you know what the Celestine Prophecy is. I read it, and that was it. I was done. So these conversations were really interesting to me, and especially sort of a year into my career, to my business, I was still absorbing and learning. And I was still trying to find my feet as a coach as well. At the time, I think I was saying I was a midlife pivot coach or whatever. I can't remember. Clarity. Talking about clarity a lot. And I hadn't really found my I don't want to say the word niche, because that's not really quite I hadn't really found my lane is more appropriate way to say it. And I was in one of these events, and it was right before the event. People were just kind of sitting down, settling in. And these two women next to me were just talking about confidence. And then one of their questions was about confidence. It was literally one of those eureka light bulb moments. And I was like, I want to talk about this more often, because of course, as a makeup artist, there was my magic as a makeup artist. So one of the things that you're going to hear me say a lot are things that I'm good at. And what I encourage women, especially, I encourage people to say, I want you to talk more about the things that you're good at, because we were taught for years to not be too big, don't boast, don't shine too bright up. I want you to tell everybody everything that you're good at, because first of all, how are they going to know? Secondly, I want you to repeat it to yourself. So to this conversation I overheard, and I realized that this idea of really putting the word confidence in what I do and really focusing on it was just something that kind of locked in. It just locked in. It just felt like part of who I was and what I do. And I'm going to be really clear about saying confidence does not equate being the loudest person in the room. Please do not mistake the ability to speak in front of other people as being the only measure of confidence. There are so many measures of it, and you're never fully not confident. I will say that right away. No one is 100% not confident. And I will argue with you and I will help you find that one thing that you're confident about if you believe that to be true. The more we say things, I'm not a confident person, the more you make that true, the more you speak that out into reality. But I promise you, everybody is good at something. Everybody knows they have a natural gift. And if they've been told to not be vocal about that, that is a whole different story than not being confident.
I'd love to ask you, as a Canadian coming to the UK,
Mm,
do you see a cultural difference in confidence? Because I feel that as Brits, we are not encouraged to shine, and it's almost frowned upon to talk about
100%.
your qualities. So did you notice that?
Yeah, and I do think there's a massive sea change. And I will say, I'm not going to speak for all of Britain because I've only ever lived in London and in Brighton. So these are two major cities with a lot of international, a lot of movement, a lot of flair. So I will say that, first of all. But yeah, there's a huge cultural difference. That said, I will say that I think it's changed. I think there's especially since social media. And I think, so I've been here, it'll be 20 years next year. And I've definitely noticed a difference since 2010, like 100% a difference. But some of those cultural sort of trickle downs are still in effect. I think, yeah. So, I always tell this story, the anecdote that I'm heard from someone else, but like in kind of an American cultural sense or North American cultural sense, because Canadians are their own culture in a way, and we're kind of a mix of both, really. But in a North American cultural sense, if you see someone with a big flashy car, a lot of the time it'll be like, wow, look at that car. How did that person get that car? What did they do to get that car? Whereas here it's like, oh, mommy and daddy must have paid for it. And it's like, poo, the flashy car. Maybe the person just really likes cars and saved up all their money to buy a car. Like, who cares? It's a car.
We'll never know. We don't know, do we?
Exactly. Especially for women or in certain parts of society, this sort of reticence to shine too bright. And that gets equated with confidence. But once again, sometimes people shine brightly to push away from the fear of being truly themselves. And it's a persona and a mask that you adopt. So once again, please don't mistake being outgoing, being extroverted with being confident, because those are two very different things.
Yes, and thank you. I think that is an important distinction, actually. So, talking about how culture can influence how then people show up, what are the other ways that get in the way of being confident for people in your experience of coaching others?
So, exactly as you say, really it can be cultural, and it really is stories. At the end of the day, the story that you tell yourself, especially the one you're saying over and over again, is the one you believe. And this comes down to so much interpretation of situations. So, one, we have to remember that, especially under the age of 7, your brain is not finished developing. The way you store memories and events in that lifespan are very different than if that same event were to happen to you as an adult. So some of those experiences will have left an imprint and a view, a perspective in your child mind. So that's one important thing to remember. Then, of course, there's whatever the cultural norms, the mores of the time are. Even what was acceptable, and I'm not even talking politically, but like was acceptable in terms of how people dressed, what people wore 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you get into differences at each time. So if you think about your younger years, what might have left an imprint or an impression on what was deemed acceptable, whether it was acceptable for you to be rebellious against those norms or not, whatever, those will have left an imprint. And then the story from maybe the singular event, that time you got fired, what you made it mean about you, that time that that person rejected you that you fancied, that time that you didn't get picked for the team, that time that you didn't get the promotion, the time that you crashed the car. Whenever an event happens, and in your important part of the processing of that memory creates a story, and when you make that story mean something about your self-worth, that now affects the confidence. Because you're going to get people, and I'm going to use the example of getting into a car accident. You can get very experienced drivers that get into a car accident. You can get inexperienced drivers who get into an accident. Can get two people with the same amount of experience of driving in the same conditions that will have a totally different afterwards action or reaction to getting back in a car, depending on their interpretation of the event. It is all happening in our minds. And our minds are so sophisticated, our brains are so sophisticated that we're constantly, incessantly creating narratives, creating stories, organizing information to fit into the easiest belief, which is the well-trodden path. And it takes effort and intention to think something different. And when you think something different, you feel something different. And when you think that something different over and over and over again, you feel different over and over again. You believe something different, and that affects your actions, which affects your results. And that's how you change your story that you've created based on an event, based on a series of events, based on your feelings about an event, to shift towards more confidence when perhaps in the past it had held you back because you don't allow it to affect your worth.
So there's two things here. One, this is extremely exciting, isn't it?
Mhm.
Because people have all this untapped potential if they get that and can rewrite it. And then I
Yes.
can't remember, you will possibly remember, who is it who said, "Who would you be without your story?"
So that's a Byron Katie classic.
Byron Katie, isn't it?
So when a thought comes into your head that is a disempowering thought or something that is not serving you, you can ask yourself, is it true? Can I absolutely know that it's true? Who would you be without that thought? And that's such a great question. So Byron Katie, for those of you who don't know, is an incredible wisdom teller. I mean, she's beyond a coach. She has many books. I'm looking at the one right now. There's the Loving What Is. There's The Mind at Home with Itself. I love consuming her old videos. She has a YouTube channel, and she has a lot of her videos, and she has this process called The Work, which is a series of questions, and she tackles so many issues, from insecurity to obesity to relationships, all with this series of questions that she calls The Work. And I highly encourage everybody to go watch her. But that question you can ask yourself is, who would I be without this thought? Think about that. Let that drop in. Let that sink in. How would you behave differently without the thought, I am not confident? And you can do this for anything. We'll just stick to confidence because we're here. Who would you be without the thought, I'm not good at public speaking? Who would you be without the thought, I'm terrible at presentations? Who would you be without the thought, I can never do anything right? Who would you be without the thought, that was not for me? Who would you be without the thought, I will never get that thing that I want? You would be a completely different person the way you're acting when you believe that thought.
Wow, yes. Amazing. I want to ask you about EFT, emotional freedom technique, because I know you are a huge advocate of this and you use it yourself, don't you? And I believe you teach it in some of your workshops and so on.
Okay. So for myself, I'm just going to refer to it as tapping because EFT is a very specific modality. It's a very specific process. I want you to think of it a little bit of as yoga. So yoga has many schools and many different sort of avenues, and people practice yoga in different ways. So before EFT, there was TFT, then there was EFT. This has all been developed over years. And now there are various people who have kind of like offshoots, as it were, from EFTs. Traditional EFT use the hand a lot, but basically they call it an algorithm. It's like a pattern of different spots on your body or your upper body that you're tapping and making a statement. This works for me. This is a really East meets West. It's based on the energetic lines of traditional Chinese medicine, the meridians. And the meridians in your body correspond to different their energy pathways. And in the same way that acupuncture or acupressure work to unblock energy that might be stuck due to an event, due to trauma, due to illness, due to holding back, if you think about the acupuncturist placing a needle in a certain lock or knot across your body to release that resistance, release that energy, tapping has been shown many, many times. Traditional EFT has been carefully studied and continues to be studied. And so the same idea is that instead of a needle, you're tapping, you're applying this sort of repeated pressure to a certain point, and then you're making a statement. So the idea of the statement is a little bit, there's a kind of psychology element to it. And it's the idea that these beliefs This resistance is being held in these points in your body that correspond to these certain energetic junctures. And by tapping on it, you're releasing and you're allowing a new belief to take hold. So it's like, if you want to just like the very kind of broad outline, simplistic view is, or explanation would be, an event happens, you create a memory, it's stored in a certain like energetic location and causes tension. And to be able to release that tension would allow you to release this memory in a that is in a negative form, right? I started seeing like videos online, or I'd be like, oh, what is this thing? And I became curious. And it just seemed like this, like, what an easy, amazing thing to have. So in the traditional form, think of it as a therapy to make something you don't want to feel go away. In the sort of offshoots and variations of it, and the way many people tap now, and the way I tap, the way I use it, is really to create a new way of viewing the world and a new expansion into possibility. It's a much more expansive practice now. It is about meeting that potential. And it's really, to me, literally, like quite literally, I'm going to use this word, tapping into the possibility, tapping into the belief. And it's almost what I have found, and what my clients find, is it feels like a way to really ingrain it in your nervous system, really ingrain it in your body. And it's just a really wonderful, very easy, very practical practice. So I use it with my clients. We create tappings together to help them get over certain things, or call in what they want, call in what they desire, build confidence. And it really is a lot about acceptance. There's a lot around acceptance, because a lot of what we would call resistance, for example, what causes dysfunction, what causes disease, what causes upset mentally, physically, is this held energy, right? In this, if we're thinking of it from a Chinese medicine point of view. And by releasing this energy, you're releasing this disease, you're releasing this tension, and you're in this kind of more modern and expansive way, you can replace it with like what we can call in, what are these new beliefs we're going to have? But that tension that's caused between maybe wishing these feelings I had about feeling not confident, feeling insecure, feeling anxiety, feeling scared, I wish they would go away. But when you make that something wrong about yourself, back to that, what I was saying earlier about when you make it mean something about you, like if I keep telling myself I should be more comfortable in this situation, I should be better at public speaking. Now there's a tension between what my conscious mind is telling me I should do, which is probably someone else's voice anyway, versus how I feel inside me, which where there's a little girl inside me that's like, I'm really scared that everybody's going to laugh at me, because there was that time when I was 8 and I went to read my poetry at the front of the class. Everybody laughed and they thought it was silly, or everybody was just looking at me and I didn't like it. So now there's this tension. But if we drop into this really deep acceptance, there's a lot of repetition of I love and accept myself. I use the phrase, I truly love, honor, and accept myself exactly as I am. Like I love using that phrase. And there's a really, there's a softening. Oh, you're okay the way you are. Oh, the body is allowed to have this tension. The body is being permitted to feel uncomfortable. The body is being permitted to feel stress or fear. Now that we've accepted it and being like, this is where we're at, but we're going to meet that with so much love, as opposed to trying to shove it down or push it away. Now we can expand into something better, because now there's a relaxation around that. Now that resistance to feeling good has been dropped. Because instead of pretending or forcing this bad feeling away, we're like, no, you are welcome here. How much better does that feel? Right? Now we can move into something else. That was a very long answer to a very short question.
So I want to move into what's the starting point to developing more confidence, if it's not too difficult a question to answer.
It's not difficult.
Are the small steps we can start to take to develop more confidence?
So the first thing I'll always say is no one is 100% not confident. And I will argue that to the ends of the earth. And I'll tell you why. Not just because something's good at everything. Everybody is good at something. Not just because everybody born in light of the same stuff as the moon and the stars, and everybody has a mission and a message here. No, it is a miracle. Like I can't remember the statistics. This is like in 14 trillion, the chances of someone being born or whatever it is. The fact that you're here means something, means it's important. And there is something inside you that you are good at. Everybody is good at something. So we can start there, first of all. Secondly, I would always ask you or whoever is asking me this question, I really want us to get very specific. When you ask the brain a big giant question, how can I become more confident? There are so many answers. If you Googled, how do I become more confident right now? Google would offer you like a bagajillion pages, right? If you Google into your mind one thing, so always start with one thing. And I want you to get super granular and specific on that one thing. And even instead of saying, I want to be more confident in public speaking, I would say something more along. So I'd say always identify exactly what you want to be confident in. I want to be confident at public speaking. I want to be confident at speaking on a stage in front of 30 people. Because public speaking can mean to you, a room of 500 people in an auditorium, whereas to someone else, it's simply giving that presentation in the workplace in front of 10 colleagues. So get super specific. I want to feel more confident speaking in front of my colleagues at the next meeting. Okay. Then identify what that looks like to you, because your version of confident and my version of confident will be very different. This is my 3-step process. So identify exactly, get really clear, really specific on what you want to develop confidence in. Then decide for yourself, what would 100% maximum turn the dial up to 10, 11 confidence in that area look like, right? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? Get really clear on that, because without knowing where you're going, you're never going to know if you get there. And once again, your interpretation of feeling confident might just be, I just want to be able to get through my notes without wanting to puke. For someone else, it might be, I want to be able to deliver that talk without using my notes, right? Those are two versions that are very different. For you as an individual, what does confidence in that area look like? And then break it down. Build the baby steps. What is the ladder? What is the ladder to get you there? What are the steps? Because first of all, by identifying where you have to go, I always say this, sometimes you actually look at where you are and you realize you're halfway there. Sometimes your journey to that full level of confidence is actually quite short. You just need to make a few tweaks and adjustments. In the example of public speaking, maybe you just need to make sure you sleep well the night before, do a meditation in the morning, calm your nerves, make sure your nervous system is okay, memorize your notes and go out. For other people, it will be, I need to practice in front of the mirror first. Then I need to practice in front of 3 people. Then I need to do it on a Zoom call in front of 10 people. Then I need to get myself in a room and just be standing in a room with 10 people, not even speaking, just standing, because that causes me to feel fearful. Your baby steps are unique to you. So what is your journey? What is your baby steps? And is it really far away? Is it really close? And then the bonus step would be, that's my basic 3-step program. But sometimes a bonus step is helpful, especially if you feel like the distance is long between where you are and where you want to go, is to think about what like obstacles or blocks might cause you to stop your journey, not move forward. So say your distance, so you're extremely nervous of public speaking, and you either simply want to get better or you have an event that you know you need to speak at. So now you've you've mapped out your road. Okay, I'm going to practice this speech. I'm going to memorize it. I'm going to script it out really clearly. I'm going to maybe use cue cards. I'm going to practice it in front of my friends and family. Then I'm going to practice it in front of my colleagues before we go to this big work event. One of the blocks that might come in is I might start to think that everybody's going to laugh at me, because one time that happened. So what can I do to deal with that before it happens? Well, I can work on my tapping. I can work on my nervous system. I can read all the positive thank you notes and notes that positive feedback I've ever gotten from anybody. I can speak to my family and friends about it. Can say positive affirmations while tapping. Like if the rope is going to be quite long, it's more likely that you will want to return to the pattern that has kept you safe. So what can you do to help yourself, to support yourself, to avoid falling into that trap of going back into a familiar pattern and continually to forge that path forward into what will be at the beginning a more difficult pattern, but eventually will become habit?
Great answer. What changes have you made to become more confident?
Ooh, that's a good one. So tapping regularly. And actually one of the major changes I've made is, or that is a constant practice. It's not like I've made it now, it's done. It's a constant effort, is leaning into the discomfort. I gave a talk at an event on Sunday, And every coach and their mother is going to teach you about unshakable confidence. Diane, you and I are of a certain age. We both know that you're going to go long enough in this life, your confidence will get challenged. It will get shaken. It will go. It will drop. And what I want women and people to understand is not about unshakable confidence, because your confidence will get shaken. It's about unbreakable. Like the mighty bamboo, we bend, but we do not break. So it's this allowance that sometimes you're going to feel stretched. You're not going to feel confident. You're going to feel scared. You're going to wonder if it's going to work out. But you having this unbreakable faith in yourself that you have got you, that no matter what happens, if everybody turns around in the room and laughs and points at you, if you fall flat on your face, if the business fails, if the, it's like a country song, if the partner leaves you and the dog dies and the car breaks down, you will still be okay. You will find a way to lift yourself back up, start again, rebuild, be okay. That's what we work on. And so chasing almost, or reaching for almost, the discomfort always means you're growing. And we are not here to stay stagnant. We are not here to stay the same. So the more discomfort, the more uncomfortable you feel, the more scared you feel, the more you are moving towards your destiny, your goal, your dharma, your big vision, the more you're going to get there. Because the longer you feel confident in doing the one thing, the more safe, the more stagnant, and the more stuck you are. If it feels too comfortable, it's too easy. You need to dream bigger. If your dreams aren't scaring you, if they're not sick-inducing, they're not big enough. So stretch, because the potential is there. Because imagine that you get to your stretch goal, right? Whether it's an income goal, whether it's a fitness goal, whether it's a health goal, whether it's a relationship goal. I was on a call just before this with my client, and we were talking about her reaching out to her network to tell them about her new business. And I was like, I left her because 2 a week is doable for her now. But, she doesn't know this. But next time we're going to be talking about a stretch goal, because what's the stretch goal? The one that pulls up a little bit. What if she can reach out to 3 people a week? We're giving it a 10-week window. Well, instead of 100 people, it's like, 3 times, that's, 300 people, whatever it is. Like, that is a lot, right? And now you're exponentially increasing your chances of meeting your, whatever it is, your vision, your goal, whatever. Allowing yourself to be in the stretch, and allowing myself to be in the stretch, and be willing to fail and do things really uncomfortably, and being like, I'm going to give this a go. It may work. It may not work. I think it's right for me, or it's right for me right now. It might not be right for me in 5 years from now, but right now it's right. So we're going to give it a go. And I think that's one thing I've really changed, is to stop trying to arrange the outcome and make the outcome mean that it's been successful. It's about who you become in the process of trying. So if you are reaching for more confidence, understand that you're going to get to a place where you feel really confident, really good about whatever it is that you've decided to do. Enjoy that. Stay there. Enjoy the view for 10 minutes, and then make a new goal.
Yes, I love that. What results have you seen in working with your clients?
That's amazing. Oh, what a great question. Oh my gosh. Well, they're really varied. And actually, it's very funny, because one of my client I was with yesterday, she started with me 2 months ago. And one of her questions when she was sort of feeling me out was, what are the results? Well, can you show me some of your client results, or something to that effect? And I said, look, I'm going to tell you right now, the first thing is in my world, my clients get results. But that's because I also choose my clients carefully. Every one of us is responsible for our own results. The role of the coach, the mentor, is to hold that space, to hold your hand, to pull you up to who they see you as, to pull you up to that potential. But at the end of the day, you're the one taking the steps. But my clients are all in creative and beauty businesses, and their fundamental thread is they're all doing something to serve humanity. They're all doing something amazing. One of my clients is creating a community that is very specific, a community and a course that's very specific to beauty startups. So she's in the process of that. But this is an idea she's had for I think a year or two, that she came to me November-ish last year, and she's like, hey, I have this idea. I'm like, great, cool. We could do this and that. Oh, I'm not ready yet. Okay, fine. I'll see you later. And in May or April, she came back. She's like, oh, I still have this idea. I was like, yeah, great. I was like, how's that going? She's like, well, it hasn't gone anywhere. I was like, would you like it to make it happen? She's like, yes, can we make this happen? And now she's doing it, and we're almost there. So in 4 months, as opposed to this idea that's been swirling for years, part of that was not just the concrete item that is being created. It's the doing of it. It's the action, the daily writing the thing, doing like all the things that go with it. I've got another client who's built a consultancy. Again, we got into it today about fundamentally her consultancy is about helping make people's lives better and removing the stress involved in construction projects, removing the money that is wasted, removing the emotional tension from that. And then another client is in a beauty service. They're creating beauty services. Another client is more in the healing space. So it was about her starting her business. So all my clients really are creating projects, communities, businesses that fundamentally help people feel better, feel good. And that's what we do. So those are the results that we get. And they feel more confident in the process because they usually come to me because they haven't started it or they sat on it exactly as the example I just said, and they kind of didn't know what to do or they didn't feel confident enough doing it. And now they're doing it. So they feel more confident. So much so my client yesterday was saying, she just feels so much more confident on camera, on socials, being able to share her work with pride. First of all, because she has more clarity on it. But secondly, because it's that permission slip, go be a little messy with it. Go just try and do it. And I think that's one thing that holds a lot of people back. They want it to look perfect or be right or land or get the sale or whatever it is. And that is the biggest mistake. The confidence comes from the action, not the other way around.
Yes. And if we go into self-worth for a minute, if we can.
Of course.
Do you agree that women are not very good at asking for help? And sometimes that can be associated with self-worth. They think they've got to do everything themselves and they don't deserve the help. Do you have a view on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's layered and complex. I think a lot of people don't like asking for help. I do think there's this expectation that we should be equally giving as parents and in our career and all that. And keeping in mind that women have had full-time careers only since the 50s, really. I know women have worked for a lot longer than that. That is not what I'm saying. But in terms of the modern vision of a career versus just a job that you do to earn some money, this is almost like a newer, or it's 100 years old, say. So this is something that's a bit different for us. So we're all still trying to get used to it. And there is this expectation around having the family or doing it all. There is I think part of it's conditioned. Part of it is, I don't know what, but I do agree that there is a reticence to ask for help. There's a feeling of I need to do it all myself. I would be better if I would be a better human. I would be a better person if I did it all myself. And in terms of the relationship to self-worth, I think that's a really much more intricate and complex one than just simply not asking for help. Because I know plenty of young people or plenty of people today that are asking for help, but also they still don't have self-worth. So I don't think it's as equatable as that. I think the self-worth and the self-value is about that self-perception and that self-trust, that really understanding, once again, that you've got you and that you are capable and able to pull yourself out of a situation. And using the services of a coach or a mentor to be the mirror and be the reflection and the handholder while you develop and look into that self-worth. And self-worth can come from many places. Jamie Kern-Lima's book, Worthy, I think is a really important one on worth because so much of our self-worth / self-confidence gets tied into output, gets tied into productivity, gets tied into what we produce in the world. And the exercise, the yoga, the meditation, the task, the dharma, the thing that we I hate using that word, but that I would invite us all to be looking at is really anchoring in that self-worth and I'm worthy and deserving of all the good and great things that I desire for my life simply because I am breathing, simply because I was born, regardless of whether my house is clean. I'm looking at my messy house. Regardless of whether my house is clean, how many dollars I put in the bank, how well my child behaved at the birthday party, how, much money I'm bringing in for the company, how successful my business is, how many clients I have, how many sales I made. The worth and the value are completely independent of the things that you do. You just are worthy. And it is remembering that for whatever reason, society, blah, 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 is difficult.
What's the title of that book again?
It's just called Worthy, and it's Jamie Kern-Lima, who is the founder of It Cosmetics.
Thank you for that. I would say that
to get to that place of full acceptance of yourself and knowing your worth, that you are worthy just because you are here, requires quite a lot of unpicking of the programming and the stories, doesn't it?
100%. And actually, you just touched on something just there where absolutely your worthiness is hiding under layers and layers and layers of stories, coats that we wear, coats of roles and responsibilities that we've adopted. And sometimes there are so many coats that like you can't even see your own heart, you can't even see your own feet again. And it's acceptance and self-worth, really, that is what goes hand in hand. Deeply accepting ourselves for who we are as we are, with all the mistakes we've made, with all the silly decisions we made, with all the people we hurt, with all the tubes of toothpaste that were left open, with all the clients that we didn't get, like loving and accepting yourself with all of that being true, not trying to erase it, not trying to gloss over it. And that, I mean, to me, that's the lifelong, when I say that's the yoga is like the work, it's the philosophy. It's like, that's the journey. Like, this is like it's not like you're going to arrive someday and be like, ta-da! I am in full 100% confidence, like even the most, like, there's always going to be, that's why I'm always talking about, like, go lean towards the stretch. But that full self-worth and acceptance is 100% possible. It is absolutely possible. That said, I think there are very few people that have that really full, like 100% acceptance. I'd say for myself, I'm a good, like, I want to say somewhere between 67 and 83%, like on a good day, I'm like, yeah, I fully love and accept myself. And on a bad day, I'm like, ooh, really wish, shame is such a powerful emotion. It's a powerful state of being. It can really push down your feelings of self-worth, your feelings of self-esteem, and being able to love yourself through whatever shame you may have, whether it's about something you did or the way you were, that is a lifelong work. But if you're even thinking about how can I love myself a little bit more today, you are feeling your own self-worth. You are in the state of self-worthiness. Even if you're asking the question, even if you only feel like your self-acceptance and your self-worth is, when you ask that question, you are showing and demonstrating to yourself that you think enough of your own lifeness that you're willing to ask the question.
Completely agree. And you only need that seed, don't you? You only need that
Yeah.
little kernel of that to build. So what have you got planned for the future, Tahira? What do you want?
Well, world domination, of course. So for the future, I've got a mastermind beginning in October. And this is a space for women who are in creative industry, in the beauty industry, in the help and service industry, who want to be with other women like them, live in their full potential, grow together, share, have a community, have a space that is held by me. There's going to be wonderful tapping, wonderful sharing of mindset tools and practices. It's called, and and then of course, after that, world domination. All the women in the world feeling super unbreakably confident, raising more financial feminists so that good women have more money to do more good in this world and fix what some of those boys have been messing about with.
Amen to that. So how can people connect with you, please?
So my name is Tahira. On Instagram, you can find me at Balance by Tahira. So at Balance by Tahira. On LinkedIn, you can find me as Tahira Herold, TahiraHerold. And on the internet, balancebytahira.com. I am always up to fun things. There's always wonderful ways to enter my world. There is a free confidence tapping that you can have if you are working on your own confidence. This is super helpful. People in my world have access to my full tapping library. So just come on over, say hi, and I'd be delighted to meet you.
It's been fantastic. I really love talking to you today. I always love your energy. I always feel better when I've been around you, even over online. So thank you, Tahira.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. And can I just say, I am so pleased, delighted, happy that this is happening because I think this is such an important podcast.
Thank you, Tahira. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
You too. Bye.